Alright, welcome back to a new video. Today we're going to be talking about the potential for a significant tornado event on Wednesday of this week, and then severe weather days on Tuesday, Thursday, and then potential for another significant severe weather sequence next week. So yeah, let's get into it. Here is our current surface analysis map for day 1. This was a little bit ago. Here's your surface analysis for right now. You can see here, portions of the United States are in the 40s, 50s right now, 60s, 70s. The stationary boundary, that's kind of with the 70s, 60s, and the more moist air mass with the dry line right there. This will lift further northward as the day goes on. This will start to become a warm front tomorrow as the day goes on. If you want to pause at certain points, you can, but we're just going to slide through this quickly. So yeah, that's what your kind of surface maps are going to be looking like over the next few days. A lot of areas are going to be seeing 1 to 2 inches of rain in the central United States. This is going to cause a risk for flash flooding tomorrow, and then the marginal risk of flash flooding and slight marginal risk of flash flooding today and tomorrow, with a slight risk on day 3. Day 4 and day 5 do not have any flash flood risk at all. Short predictions otherwise, we have a day 2 slight risk. Areas in the severe risk anywhere from Iowa, Minnesota border down into southeastern Nebraska, western Missouri, western half of Missouri, western Arkansas, central and eastern Kansas, most of Oklahoma. If you're not in the panhandle, then you're in no risk at all. Good portion of central and northern Texas into northeastern Texas. And yeah, those are the areas with the risk. A tornado risk is going to be possible for areas like Dallas, Fort Worth tomorrow, Wichita Falls, Fort Still, Oklahoma City, and Norman, Oklahoma, as well as Tulsa. The main tornado risk tomorrow is probably going to start around midnight as storms fire along the dry line, and it'll carry on until probably 7 a.m. in that 2% region. The greatest risk for tornadoes tomorrow will probably somewhere between 1 and 4 a.m. There is a large risk of damaging winds existing all the way from Iowa into Texas, along with a large hail risk existing from Iowa into Texas as well. On the day 3 outlook, we have a significant chance of severe weather possible across portions of the southern United States. Places in the enhanced risk include northeastern Louisiana, like Alexandria and Monroe. Places in Mississippi, like Jackson, Greenville, Columbus, Starkville, Hattiesburg, lots of different places in Mississippi, and also a sliver of southeast Arkansas is in there as well. Western Alabama, like places like Tuscaloosa, Demopolis, just north of Mobile. And then in the slight risk is a large area from just south of Evansville, back through Lufkin, Shreveport, Texas, Little Rock, Arkansas, Memphis, Tennessee, Jackson, Tennessee. In the marginal, you have places like St. Louis, Missouri, Columbus, Georgia, Louisville, Kentucky, Atlanta, Georgia, Nashville, Tennessee, Dothan, Alabama. So those are some of the spots in that. There's a significant chance of severe weather for places like Jackson, Mississippi, Monroe, Louisiana, Alexandria, Louisiana, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, Meridian, Mississippi, Columbus, Mississippi. Hard to think of anywhere else. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I think, is in the significant risk as well. Or maybe just outside of it. Okay, they're in the slight. Okay. Oh yeah, for the day 4 outlook, we have a large 15% risk of severe storms extending from northern North Carolina all the way up into the Philadelphia area. Your main hazard with this is going to be damaging wind gusts, but there also could be a brief tornado and isolated large hail as well. Here is the HRRR run for the rest of the day. We're going to kind of zoom into the southern plains here. We're going to kind of look at that. So, it'll be pretty quiet across the plains today. A few showers will work into your area overnight tonight. And into tomorrow, and the day tomorrow, a few showers will be working across the area, maybe southern Texas, western Texas. There'll be showers throughout the day, chances for showers for you guys. Then around 8 o'clock, we start to see a line of storms start to initiate here. And around 9 p.m., some storms may become severe there in west central Texas by Fort Stockton. Looking at the soundings, you might see an isolated damaging wind gust given the very strong decay profiles. But other than that, you're probably not going to see much severe activity with that initial round. This line of storms grows pretty fast and grows northward as well. Places in Oklahoma may see a severe threat as well. As we get to around, this is 10 o'clock. Oh no, this is 11. We start to see a few holistic tracks show up on the HRRR model with stronger storms across Texas there. You can also see another area of stronger storms here across Oklahoma. We're going to stop this at hour 34 for a second. These storms, mixed layer-wise, you would have anywhere between 500 to 1,000 joules per kilogram Cape to look at, to give. Anywhere in these darker gray colors in here is going to be 500 plus joules, and then those light blues is going to be 1,000 plus. Storm relative velocity values are going to be anywhere 200 plus, which is definitely sufficient for tornadoes. 3 Cape is going to be very low, except if you're right along the dry line, so that means your tornado threat might be very low at this point. Unless you're like initial along the dry line. You're going to have very steep lapse rates, so it's going to be easy to get large hail, maybe an isolated very large hailstone as well. Oops, I accidentally went over another window. And then looking at your hodographs, you can see on the hodograph map, they're very supportive now. If I take a sounding here, you can see here it's very capped and a little too capped for tornadoes in that area though. Further north you go, still very little tornadic chances up there. Maybe a little more into Kansas, maybe you'll see a tornado chance? No. Well, actually, maybe, but that's a little bit contaminated, so I don't know. Once you get toward that 5-6 time frame, you can start to see here, your line of storm starts to weaken more. We can go back to the loop. Another little batch of it kind of starts to blow up again on the southern end. This is again going to be a wind threat mainly, maybe isolated large hail, given the fact that your hail growth layer is pretty steep aloft there, but it's a little bit dry toward the surface, so your hailstones might melt in the atmosphere. So I think damaging wind gusts would be really the only threat with that. Oops. As we get toward 8Z or so, we could see an isolated severe threat still lingering. I think this is when your tornado threat starts to increase, as you see that warm layer there around just a little bit above 700 millibar starts to decrease, and you start to see more low-level instability become a factor there. Your hodographs become a little bit less favorable with weird profiles in the low levels, but you do still see a large hodograph in place with S or H values in the 1 kilometer regime of around 216. Your instability is very skinny, and you have lapse rates aloft those. You could get hail with this as well, but mainly wind and maybe a brief tornado. At 10Z, we start to see this line really start to decay. There is some tornado potential, though, given the fact that your profiles are definitely supportive of it. As we move along, we can still see Arkansas with this threat as well. Diving a bit deeper into the sounding here, you can see that your hodograph is a bit more well-rounded than the other hodographs that I've seen. Your lapse rates are a little bit more steep. You have better low-level instability, and your instability overall is not terrible. Your storm relative velocity and stuff is better too, so I think your target at this point, you're going to see a brief tornado in Arkansas. Looks like this line really starts rebounding as we get toward 8 a.m. or so. They start to see these hodographs enlarging across Arkansas, which would allow for a better Louisiana and Arkansas, which would allow for better tornado risk. That's Arkansas again. Your instability is going to be very low, so I do not expect a very significant tornado threat at this point in the morning. But there is a lingering risk for a brief tornado or two. I think damaging winds would be the main threat, though. But as we get a little bit later, hodographs are still very large across the region. You're going to start to see instability really start kicking up into Louisiana here, and I think your main QLCS will really start to get going generally across that area. There's a sounding. It's pretty solid overall. A lot better at that point of the day. As you can see here, your line really starts to build as you get to 17Z, looking just in front of the line. Very supportive environment for stronger tornadoes especially. You can see your instability profiles have gotten a lot larger. You can see maybe a little bit of hail. Your instability values, they've gotten a lot larger, allowing cloud tops to get up to around 12 kilometers. And then the very large hodograph as well, with SRH values in the low levels of 400, and you also have steep lapse rates in the low levels, and mid levels are a little bit less steepened, given the fact that you have a little bit of a small warm nose right there. E-player shear 60 knots, cloud layer shear 90 knots. This is a pretty solid hodograph. DK of 600, which will provide a damaging wind threat, along with your low level shear being very strong. Once you get toward around 18Z, this line really starts getting going. Multiple embedded linear segments and multiple potential embedded supercells as well. Eastern Louisiana, again, potential for tornadoes is very possible. Out of eastern, northeastern Arkansas there. You could see an isolated tornado, but I think your surface dew point is going to be a little bit too low for that, so I think damaging winds are going to be your main threat up there. Places in Missouri. Maybe an isolated damaging wind gust could translate to the surface, but I'm really not expecting it. Boot heel of Missouri, there is a tornado risk. Now, again, the dew point temperature depression is not that good, so you're probably not going to see it as much. Now, let's stop the HRRR at hour 48 and kind of look at the hodograph map and observe it. So we see very large hodographs right in front of that line, probably 17 degrees at this point. Very good instability profiles along it. Let's take a box sounding here and kind of analyze it. Looking at the box sounding, the thermodynamic profile is pretty thin, but you have SRH of 300, which could compensate for it, and your lapse rates aren't completely trashed. Your instability in the low levels is 60. Actually, I showed the wrong area. Your instability in the low levels is 60, which isn't terrible. Along with that, your instability overall is not great. The temperature spread is not that bad, though. There's a little bit of backing in the hodograph at this point, which causes a little bit of veer back veer, so you might have a concern with splitting storms, maybe, in some areas. We'll have to see, though. Also, nice little surface low there in Oklahoma, so maybe some isolated large hail along with that. See if the H1 initiates anything. Yeah, a little bit of storms initiate back there. Now, let's look at the route. We're going to analyze kind of the overall pattern with it. So this is the 200 millibar flow. This is very upper level flow. So here it is. So here's your flow kind of getting into the Dixie region, and that is your classic outbreak look. You have big time flow kind of going that way, you have big time flow going that way, getting the stage set for divergence kind of in that area. Loft, and you can see here, this is your classic outbreak look with the trough, and you can see that convection really burrow into it. Here's your low level jet at 850 millibars just above the surface. Tomorrow we're expecting a large area with a strong low-level jet across Kansas there. This will overspread Dixie Alley as we get into the day for them. Very, very strong low-level jet is expected across Dixie Alley. Some areas may see an 80+ knot low-level jet. It's very possible. Now, let's get into kind of what the wrap is showing. So we're going to stop this at 18Z, a very large area of 60+ knots of flow in the low levels, and to combine that with a lot of areas with strong hodographs. Like here in central Mississippi, you have an area with big time wind shear, big time hodograph. Again, kind of eastern Louisiana there, a big time hodograph with big time hodograph with decent stability as well. As you get up into the Mississippi area, northern Mississippi, we could see again some strong instability along with big time hodographs again. A huge hodograph there with not great instability, but definitely enough to get the job done. So I think tomorrow you could see strong tornadoes, definitely a possibility, as the Storm Prediction Center mentioned 70+ mile/per-hour gusts and strong tornadoes being the main threats. Maybe some isolated hail as well, but I do not think hail is going to be a big threat at all. I think your best threat is going to be damaging winds, widespread damaging wind gusts. Tornadoes are going to be possible, several possible, with a couple embedded spin-ups, or a couple embedded stronger, longer-lived tornadoes being possible. Now, if we do end up seeing discrete supercells tomorrow, which I highly doubt, but if we do, we're probably going to see a significant tornado risk with any that try to develop. And if they don't get developing, then we might not see a risk with them. As there's potential for a bigger EML, but you could see a big time linear segment is expected. We're going to quickly go over the NAM 3 kilometer as well. Similar story, line of storms fires up tomorrow afternoon. It progresses into the Dixie Alley region, and we see a line of storms from Illinois all the way up there. Forgot to mention, Illinois has a isolated risk for severe weather with this system. It's not significant. Mainly southern Illinois is going to be your big player down here where there's instability is a bit better, but there is potential for isolated storms all the way up into northern Illinois with this system, maybe further north. Anywhere kind of along the low pressure and southward there, you could see any thunderstorms with this. Maybe isolated stronger ones as well. Here's a kind of a look at the name again. This is going to go out for the full system. There's tomorrow. Then you can see there's the Carolina Day. This could bring isolated severe weather up into portions of Pennsylvania. We'll briefly take a look at that. And yeah, you have a large photograph. Skinny instability though, but it's definitely possible. Here's Florida, Georgia area. It's possible to see severe weather down there as well. I think you're going to see a huge marginal covering most of the coastline on day 3 tomorrow with that outlook for that. That's even better at 21Z. Now, here's the SRF. We're going to kind of observe its flow. So yeah, looking at the SRF here, definitely see, you can see its flow. You kind of get that divergent looking as you get into Dixie there. The flow weakens a little bit at 300. You can kind of see just ejecting into kind of that area. We'll look at the UK Met briefly as well. We could see another severe event next week, maybe. 132. Oh, wait, no, that's not anything severe. Looking at the Canadian model, we'll kind of briefly look over this. As you get to around this time frame here, we could see a severe weather event somewhere across the plains, and then the next day bringing it into Dixie Alley. It's a possibility we see a severe weather event there. It's getting more and more likely that we see it. Models have been trending for a long time that we see it in an event over in that general region. So it's very possible we get another system, dynamic system, that brings another multi-day severe weather sequence. But yeah, it's around the April 5th time frame. See this big time trough eject into the plains there, and then eject into Dixie Alley. Again, another system is possible. The GFS also shows this, but we're gonna first. Okay, yeah, here's the 18Z GFS. Quickly looking over it. There's the first system, significant severe weather possible again with that. Then the second system forms up in the plains on Monday, moves over to Dixie Alley on Tuesday next week, and brings not a significant severe threat. And then maybe into the Mid-Atlantic for another threat, and then further out, just la la land. You don't even know what's going to happen. But looking a little bit more in depth with that severe weather threat next week. Flow is not great until you get to Tuesday. Big time negative tilt trough that gets put into Dixie Alley again. Big time low level jet energy as well. 60, 70 plus knots. Looking at your photograph map as well, you see pretty big amounts of instability being placed across the region. So that's going to be something to really keep an eye on. Maybe a Carolina risk the next day too. The Euro again is showing a very similar process. Another system forming up. Kind of a little bit similar, a little bit different process, but it's something similar. It has the Dixie event still, but it's a little bit different. It's more south oriented. It's not as good as the other models are showing it to be advertised. The low pressure deepens a lot later, and it's further south. Maybe the next day is a little bit. Yeah, it looks like the next day in the Carolinas is a bit better. Now, looking at the GEFS, this is something we're going to look at here. We're going to here it is. This is the day. You can see the trough is very weak at this point on the GEFS, but it's getting a lot better online that we could see a trough across kind of somewhere in here. I think most of the ensemble members show a trough and getting ejected in here. It's just how strong, where, and that kind of stuff. And for this far out, having a 30+ knot low-level jet signal is something that you do definitely want to watch. And having a signal where a warm sector with the mean dew point already up into the 60s is definitely something to watch as well. I do think Storm Prediction Center will probably mention probabilities tonight. You already have a signal like this, Supercell Composite above 1 is already pretty high too. And above 5 is already 50%, and your Cape mean is almost 2,000 already, with 500 joules per kilogram being likely. Now, going forward and looking at it on College of page here, this Texas Day, severe weather again is possible there. Here it is for the Dixie Day. Very widespread area of 1,000 Cape is possible. Mean Supercell Composite is already very high, already a 4. Ensemble Supercell Composite is off the rocker. Let's just look at them. This one doesn't have as significant of an event. This one doesn't have as significant of an event, really no event, and this one either. This one, and then this one. That's only 4 of them that don't show a significant event. That's crazy. A more significant event. That is crazy. You have this good agreement this far out. Your max Supercell Composite is pretty high, which is to be expected. Your probability of Supercell Composite is 80% in some areas in Louisiana, so that's pretty high. And then EHI is around the same. Here's your 500 millibar spaghetti plot. It's pretty much in line with each other. Again, the ensemble. We're going to go look at the ensemble wind, I guess. You can see here. Let's see here. This one doesn't show good trough. This one doesn't show good trough. This one doesn't show good trough. This one. Actually, that's not terrible. There's really only a few of them that don't show really significant troughs, which is interesting. So I think you're locked into a significant severe, or not significant, but potential for a severe weather this day as well. Looking over at the European mean, looping with it. Again, the Euro has signals for an event too. Not as strong of one as the GEFS, but it's definitely got a signal. And the dew point mean is already almost to the 60s with this, so it's something to watch closely. Nice, I got there soon. Again, another signal for the next day too. But that is going to do it for this one. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Stay safe over the next few days as well.